I used to think the glow was makeup, something I had to earn, but it's water in the morning and letting my body learn. This clean skin, soft light, this rest that shows in my eyes. This is how I hold my shoulders when I stop living rushed. I don't chase it, I make space for it. I come back to myself. That's a woman's glow, not loud, but you can feel it. That's a woman's glow. When I'm calm, it gets realer. That's a woman's glow. When I take my time, it's a light I don't chase, it's a light I find. The real glow comes from inside, when I don't need a proof, when I say no without guilt, and I still keep my peace. It's being kind, staying sharp, it's knowing what I allow. It's moving slow on purpose and standing solid now. I protect my energy, I don't pour it out for free. I keep my senses. That's a woman's glow, not loud, but you can feel it. That's a woman's glow. When I'm calm, it gets realer. That's a woman's glow. When I take my time, it's a light I don't chase, it's a light I find. Capri Luna, I stay steady, I don't beg the world to see. I don't need the room to crown me, I know what's in me.
All right, what's up, y'all? So after a few months of working on this car, kind of just getting it pieced back together where I would want to drive it myself, is the stopping point we're going to make on this car. So as you can see here, we got the fresh paint on the wheels. We went over it mechanically and installed new injectors. The owner before me had already done the fuel filter and fuel pump, and it still wasn't running great, so we ended up having to do the injectors in it. It still does have like a slight grind to second gear, even though we've added some synchro mesh to the transmission, but either way, the car runs and drives really good despite that issue and looks really good now. So I hope you guys like it. Check it out. All right, so just kind of going over this car front to back. You've got to love the aggressive front end. A lot of these 90s cars were just super tough looking on the front, or all the way around. The style in the early 2000s and the 90s were the best for the especially the JDM cars. But you know, we'll call them plastic cars because it is what it is. Everybody knows that I love the 60s and 70s styling and the steel and the chrome, and you know, you just can't beat the 60s and 70s muscle car generation. But as a new era stepped in and these cars became more and more plastic, the late 80s, early 90s style was just way more aggressive than they, you know, kind of dwindled down over the years. See the fresh black paint job? It's just, you know, a cheap single stage paint job, but it looks really good. Could still stand to be like color sand and buff. There was just a little bit of trash in the hood, but I mean, it stands really tall, and especially for a driver, it's a nice looking paint job. We done like the Dupla color wheel paint on the wheels. It's supposed to have like a ceramic in it for chip resistance and chemical resistance. So I've never done that specific paint before on the wheels, so we'll see how it holds up. Just Rust-Oleum on the, it adds like 10 horsepower. If you don't know anytime you paint your calipers red. So it got the duplicolor red paint. So moving on to the interior, you know, I like to call it a 9 out of 10. It's no rips, no like burns in the seats. All that's really nice. Front seats, no wear whatsoever. It's just nice the way it's supposed to be. It's a couple like places on the interior that are peeling up. I'll probably address those, you know, as I'm like driving this car. If until it sells, over there's a panel that's peeling up. It's a little tear in the edge of that visor, but the headliner is perfect. All the little map lights work. All the gauges work. The fuel light is staying on. The gauge works, but the light's staying on, so I don't know what's up with that. But anyway, so I accidentally popped the trunk. We'll just look at the back of this car. All that's really nice. So as the tools, the spare, no rust. We just vacuumed it out, my son and I. Cleaned up on the carpet and all that stuff. I just repainted, you know, like a Rust-Oleum. All this was kind of had some surface rust, and cleaned it up and repainted it. But the heart of these cars, any like DSM guy would agree, it's a 4G63 engine. These, in particular, the first gen that's got Ford's internals from the factory, will hold up to a ton of power and you know, positive pressure. If somebody wanted to turbo this car, this would be a nice one to turbo. And I normally go that route, but this car is just such a nice driver. I don't think it's one I want to do on this one. I'm already kind of building a super fast car, so this car would just be, for me, it would be left alone. I actually still have the factory air box that filter goes in. I just feel like it breathes a little bit better without it, so I'm just got it kind of hanging out there. But something happened at one time. I don't know, thermostat or something. This engine never looks like it had a head gasket replaced or anything, but it's obviously blew coolant at one time. But all that would kind of clean back up. I just hadn't cleaned the engine bay or anything, and don't really plan on it with all the electronics. But the tune-up was done before I got it. I've got an earlier video that showed me replacing the injectors. Also done an EGR delete on this car. Fresh oil change, fresh synthetic fluid in the transmission with 1 quart of synchro mesh. And up under it don't really seem to have any leaking, like just oil pouring out of it, but up under you can see where it's got some residue, like I think around the oil pressure, either oil pressure or oil level sensor down here below down under the filter. There's some residue, and I found an axle boot busted on this passenger side. So just a couple things to address later on, but overall, for a driver and a nice looking car to drive, a clean example of one of these cars that survived the 90s and early 2000s with the Fast and the Furious days. This is one to have. So anyway, if you're interested in buying it, hit me up. If not, then don't, about this car. But I'm going to drive it and enjoy it, and probably tint it out and fix, you know, little mechanical things as I go. So rainy day we got here to drive this car. So what I love about this car in particular, and you know, this whole generation of cars really is what we'll be talking about, but it's really like a relic to drive a car like this, because, you know, growing up in the 90s, these cars were super cars. If you're a kid, and you know, as I was then, you would hear stories about these cars and see like the you know, the JDM magazines where these cars could be like almost 9-second flat cars in a quarter mile running this same engine. Of course, those were like all-wheel drive GSX, you know, super well built turbo cars. But you know, if you're a kid and you're just kind of growing up in that generation, you just kind of thinking Eclipse is an Eclipse. But at any rate, you know, these cars were revered in their day, and as I got older and I got old enough to drive, I loved these cars, and I was always keeping my eye on them, but they were never just I don't know, all the all-wheel drive turbo models just got destroyed through the racing, the, you know, like Fast and the Furious days. Everybody was, and nobody really had the money, or not many people really had the money to do a build properly, or knew what they were doing enough to build a car properly, so they you know, just trashed them with poor wiring and crappy parts. And anyway, as I got enough to drive and try to buy one of these cars, or always keep my eye on them, they were just trashed out, you know, especially the all-wheel drive turbo models. So I really didn't think much about them, but this car popped up for sale locally, and just a super nice car. I mean, drove it, and you know, I've worked on enough cars over the years to know what the bones of a car should look like a good starting point. You know, you'll spend way more money like trying to piece together a ragged out car in the long run than spending just a little bit more for a nice car. And that applies to any vehicle, whether you build it or not. But see if I can keep second gear from grinding. If you really let the RPMs come down, yeah, there we go, it'll slide in. If you try to slam that thing in a second, it'll grind on you. But you know, but this car popped up, and it's just a super nice example of one of these. I had to do a little bit of mechanical work. You can see, refer to some previous videos. We put new injectors in this. I had a misfire to the engine, a stumble to it, not a lot of power, and the previous owner had spent a lot of time and money on, you know, tune-up parts, and already done a fuel pump in this car, already done a fuel filter, and I think the timing belt was the next plan of action that the previous owner was going to take on this car. It had a apparent miss, you know, just seemed like on one cylinder just consistently missing. So just the testing I done an EGR delete, and the testing I done just was leading back to the fuel. So we got a set of injectors off like eBay, just some cheap injectors, and threw in here, and it runs like a brand new car. Like, the engine don't miss a lick. It still has like phenomenal power for its mileage, 210,000 miles. Mechanically, the only other thing I'm planning on doing to this car is the catalytic converter. It's still got a full stock exhaust up under it, and I'm going to get rid of the catalytic converter, just as I do in almost all these older vehicles. We're in Alabama without emissions, so we don't have emissions testing, and we can get by with that. So it just frees up a little bit of flow through the exhaust, and also, you know, cuts out potential problems down the road for like that thing clogging up or stopping up and causing major issues with the flow of the air of the engine. So anyway, holds good temperature, good oil pressure. I don't know honestly what that light is. I don't know if it's a coolant light or what, but it's not low of coolant. Fresh oil change, fresh transmission fluid. I did add a quart. I put synthetic 75 weight fluid in this transmission, but I added a quart of synchro mesh. You know, I was reading online that it might help the synchros in the transmission. Super common for these things to grind. I know there's a few common problems with them, but I plan on, you know, if this car doesn't sell for whatever reason, and I end up just keeping it and driving it longer term, maybe this winter, I'll just put a 2G transmission in this thing, you know, change some linkages and throw a more common later model newer transmission in this thing. It would make a great car to like turbo swap. It's already got, you know, a great running engine that could handle handle a little bit of boost and make it super fun and sound good. And that's another option at a low boost. I've got plenty of turbo parts, but it's just such a nice driver. You know, I've almost ruined a lot of cars by kind of race carring them, and I don't think it's a good idea for this car, but it would be fun. It would sound good.